everyone, this is Joe Rebella, known to many in the internet world as Kenpojoe, and today we're going to be focusing on an important ingredient in relationship to martial arts, and specifically the Filipino martial arts. Now, at our studio we teach a particular aspect of the martial arts called American Filipino Arnis Eskrima Kali Training System. Boy, that's a long name. Simply say we call it effects for short. Now, the key ingredient regarding effects, or in relationship to the Filipino martial arts, is taking the Filipino martial arts and utilizing Ed Parker's American Kempo terminology and vocabulary to make it easier for the Filipino student practitioner to understand the various aspects of FMA, Filipino martial arts, in American or English terminology, and to give a greater understanding of format in relationship to that. Now, today we're going to be taking a simple series of drills known to many of you in the Filipino martial arts as brush, hold, strike, and also Hubud. Now again, Hubud means to tie in Tagalog, and Lubud means to untie. We're not going to be getting into the untying aspects, though we really should, because so many people mentioned about Hubud, they forgot about Lubud, but that's another time in another video. Right now, what we're going to go into is a very important term, a very important saying that Ed Parker utilized, that we're going to show you how it cross-references to the Filipino martial arts. And that term is, for every move, theory, concept, principle, and or definition, there is an opposite and a reverse. Now, that being said, let us first look into the basic concept of brush, hold, strike. Now, brush, hold, strike was first taught to me by Professor Remy Amador Priestas, Professor Priestas, the founder of Modern Arnis. And he talked about the basic concept of brush, hold, strike, which is an introduction into the mano a mano or cadena de mano, hand-to-hand or chain-of-hand movements. Every time I hear hand-to-hand, I think of the wonderful movie with Andrew Dice Clay, Ford Fairlane, where in the final scene he squared off with Robert Englund, who many of you know as Freddy Krueger from the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and Robert Englund's got him, you know, hands down with a pistol pointed at him. And he goes, "Oh, you got to use the gun, let's go, you know, hand to hand, mano a mano." And he makes Robert Englund drop the gun, and Ford Fairlane immediately pulls out a gun and shoots him. He goes, "Mano a mano, what's that?" Well, in this case, the hand-to-hand drill. And we're going to work the chain of hands, the way the hands interrelate with one another. But first and foremost, we have to work on that basic drill. First of all, we're going to use triangular footwork. From the oncoming arm, we can either move off on a 45-degree angle away from the limb, yet closer to our opponent. Now, in the brush, hold, strike drill, what we're going to do first, we're going to step off with our left foot, for the sake of the camera. And we're going to move, and as we move on that diagonal angle, on that angle to 1030, we're going to take our lead hand, and we're going to do an inward action with the palm of our hand. And we're going to brush through. At that point, we're going to take our rear hand and we're going to turn it palm facing out. And as we do so, our front hand will come to the inside of our other arm and execute an outward, horizontal, circular back knuckle or back fist strike. I'm saying that very specifically to show you what's going on. So again, as I move, my lead arm moves in a horizontal plane. My hand is in a vertical position, parrying with the palm of my lead, in this case, left hand. I then execute a following through action in a brushing motion. I then take my rear hand, bringing my arm out, executing my hand in a vertical position with the palm of my hand, and then grab and hold on to that opponent's limb. I then bring my lead hand up and in an outward horizontal action, striking with my vertical fist, hitting with the back of my two major metacarpals and knuckles, I strike him with an outward horizontal back knuckle or back fist strike. Normal speed. Great position for, please don't hurt me, I don't want to fight, I just want to show witnesses that I'm a passive person and you're the aggressor. Okay, I changed my mind. Now, if we look at the concept that we talked about earlier, that saying, for every move, theory, concept, principle, and definition, there is an opposite and a reverse. Let us now look at Hubud. Hubud comes from the Tagalog language. In Tagalog, it means to tie. To tie something. In this case, when we use a basic Hubud action, and some people say, well, I use it with 4 motions, you're only using 3. No. The basic, rudimentary, fundamental, simplistic understanding of Hubud is these 3 movements. And they are as follows. As I step, again with my left foot on a diagonal angle toward 1030. Again, the triangle footwork. In reality, this is an inverted triangle, and of course, the straight line that comes as the base of the triangle is actually our opponent. So I bring my hands up, hey, I don't want to fight. Or I leave my hands down. Let's do the opposite. If our hands are up in one, our hands are down in the other. Why? Watch what we do with our hands. Now, for my hands down position as opposed to hands up in the previous action, opposites and reverses, I will step with my lead foot to a diagonal angle. I will now take my, well, what's the opposite of the lead hand we did in the previous action? Well, that's rear hand. What's the opposite of utilizing the palm of my hand? Well, that would be the back of my hand. What would be the opposite of my hand being in a vertical position? What would be in a horizontal position? So here, I'm utilizing this outward action as opposed to inward, and I'm utilizing the back of my hand as opposed to the palm of my hand, and I'm bringing my hand in a horizontal position as opposed to bringing my hand in a vertical position as done before in this action. I then will follow that with a lead hand inward vertical palm checking motion. Remember, before I did it with my front hand, I did it with my back hand moving out. Now, as opposed to moving out with my back hand, I'm moving in with my front hand. As opposed to utilizing a grabbing motion here, I'm utilizing a checking motion here. So again, 1, 2. Now, our third action, I take my rear hand and execute a rear hand vertical thrusting punch with the front of my 2 major metacarpals of my fist. Well, when we did brush hold strike, we did an outward horizontal circular motion striking with the back of our 2 major knuckles of our hand in a vertical position with a circular striking motion. Here, with Lubud, I'm utilizing a linear as opposed to circular, thrusting as opposed to whipping, or some people would say snapping, but again, some people say whipping is nothing more than snapping on a circular plane. But again, in American Kenpo, we utilize that in relationship to our fingertips. If you work with Skip Hancock's people in Kenpo 2000, they utilize it for anything. Almost anything. I'll get a call from Skip right now. But anyway, this leads to this. As opposed to lead hand, we're using backhand. As opposed to circular, we're using linear. As opposed to the back of our knuckles, we're using the front of our knuckles. As opposed to a strike, we're utilizing a punch. Wow! Looks like yet another understanding of category completion. So, Lubud, 1, 2, 3. Brush hold strike, 1, 2, 3. Hubud, 1, 2, 3. Brush hold strike, 1, 2, 3. Now, the key ingredient is by understanding those 2 basic concepts, you have category completion. Left as opposed to right, horizontal as opposed to vertical, linear as opposed to circular, punching as opposed to striking. That's the key. So again, brush and inward, horizontal motion, hand is in a vertical position, brushing through, taking my rear hand is an outward action, moving on a horizontal plane, grabbing the person's limb, executing, moving my hand to the inside with an outward, horizontal, circular, back knuckle strike. As opposed to Hubud, stepping off my rear hand, moving in an outward action, executing with the back of my hand in a horizontal position, palm facing up, then following it with an inward, horizontal, pressing action with my hand in a vertical position, pressing with the palm of my lead hand, and then instead of grabbing, I keep my hand in the checking position. Does that mean I cannot grab? Sure you can. But now I'm not grabbing with my back hand anymore, I'm grabbing with my front hand. And if I'm grabbing with my front hand, as opposed to this action where I'm really grabbing more out, my palm's more palm out as opposed to palm down here, I can execute my punching action here. Still adhering to the basic understanding of category completion and again opposites and reverses. So, Hubud, 1, 2, 3. Brush over strike, 1, 2, 3. There you have it. Again, you can work it to the inside of an arm, to the outside of an arm. There are many different drills that you can utilize, also blending from one to the other. We never said that you couldn't do Hubud into brush hold strike. We never said you couldn't do brush hold strike into Hubud. Take this basic idea, have some fun with it. Until next time, this is Joe Rebello. Keep training.